Joining us to give us his perspective is our pal Craig Hoffman, host of the Craig Hoffman Show on Team 980. What's up, Craig?
What's up, boys? How we doing?
Good. So you break down film a lot more than us. You talk to Logan Paulson on the regular. You do your show with him. What are you seeing from this Cliff Kingsbury's offense overall, where they have now sputtered for 3 weeks straight and maybe even 5 weeks if you want to go that far back? What are you seeing overall, big picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just the lack of first and second down efficiency, right? So the basic easy stuff that they had earlier in the year, the run game specifically, is not there right now at the same level. And so that gets you into third and longs, and then they're facing more pressure. I've watched about the first quarter and a half of the film from yesterday, and like the offense was better than I thought it was going to be based off of the production, the output, how it felt at the time. But then you get in these situations where you have one bad run and you're in a second and long, and then you have an incompletion. Now you're in third and long, and then here's Micah Parsons blowing up a play, and now you're punting even though you got a first down earlier in the drive and things look to be rolling. And so I think that's the biggest thing is the run game, the designed running back run game is just not anywhere close to what it was earlier in the season. And I just think it's an execution thing, which isn't always just the players not executing. You know, the coach is putting them in optimal situations, or, is the teaching falling off, or what, they're not correcting mistakes. I don't know what the reason is, but the inability to run the ball effectively. And a part of it's obviously Brian Robinson is hurt, in the last couple games and then gets hurt on the first play of this game, but still it's just not giving them the prime optimal second and short, third and short, or not even getting to third down type of situations when that's how they lived earlier in the year.
How about the fact that Terry McLaurin has only been targeted 6, 2, and 6 times during the 3-game losing streak dating back to the Pittsburgh game? It's just not enough. I mean, you look at some of the elite wide receivers in the game, and those guys get targeted 10-plus times per game. He's had 1 10-target game the entire season, and that was back in late September. Do we need to see an uptick in Terry targets going forward?
I mean, this has been a train that I've been on for years. I'm like, I know that Terry is not Justin Jefferson. I know that Terry is not CeeDee Lamb, but he's really, really good. And what would happen if you treated him like that? I'm just curious. I don't think it's actually the best way for an offense to run to get him, 15 targets a game, but somewhere in the 8 to 10 range feels like a good idea for sure. And I think part of it, though, goes back to what I was talking about. Like, you have to have the play volume to get that many targets. Like, the percents are not as far off from some of the top guys as you would think, but it's because they're only running, 50 plays a game or whatever, because they can't get first downs. Like, if you don't have a 9-play drive, there's not a lot of opportunities to get anyone the football. You can't stack carries. You can't stack targets. You can't stack anything because there's just not the plays. And so I do think percentage-wise, I would like to see him get the football more. There are some plays, even in the first half, that I've watched back now where they're throwing the ball. They kind of got mirrored routes on either side, and it's a stop or a go. And Jaden chooses to throw to Noah Brown. And maybe they like that matchup better on the corner 31 for Dallas. Maybe they like that a little bit better, but I would trust Terry in those situations. He's really good at running those vertical or, kind of off the vertical stem where it's you threaten deep and then stop. He's more sudden than a guy like Noah Brown is, which is really important on those routes. He's more sure-handed in contested catch situations. So that becomes an issue there for a couple times on Brown. So I would just like to see him, like the short answer case is yes, I would like to see Terry targeted more, but I do understand some of why he's not. And it goes back to the stuff that we've talked about.
Didn't you expect to see a bigger bump from Austin Ekeler yesterday in both the rushing and passing game when B-Rob was clearly affected by getting folded over early in the game? I thought it was just going to be a huge Austin Ekeler game from there on out. And I think they need to target him more because he's not a guy that you want to give 10 to 12 carries to. You want to give him 5 to 7, maybe 10. If the starter goes out, he gets more. Like, I thought he should have been more involved once B-Rob was clearly limited.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Austin is he's not a great, running back, right? Like, he's not a guy that you're going to give duo and inside zone and all these different looks to and expect it to go great. He's a space player. And so if you want to change up your offense and then go, all right, we're going to hit a few more screens. The problem is, if I'm Cliff, I'm scared to call a screen because we got picked on one earlier in the game. Like that's not going to make me feel very confident that we're going to execute that at a high level. And our screen game has been a mess for 3 weeks for a variety of different reasons. So I do feel, I know everyone wants to crush Cliff, and that's what happens when you lose and your unit's not really performing that well. So I get it's part of the league. This is not necessarily a defensive Cliff. It's just an empathy and an understanding to go, man, if I was him right now, I don't know what I'd call to feel good, because they're mistargeting runs. They are not, holding and sticking blocks well on that stuff. The screen game has been a disaster. So I just don't know what to call to feel really good about to get the ball in these playmakers' hands in a way that I feel confident in. That's his job. He's got to figure it out. So that's not saying like, oh, well, I guess they're just going to be bad now. And we'll accept it. Like, they got to figure it out. But I understand the problem here in terms of not feeling great calling a bunch of stuff that worked for me earlier in the year, because it hasn't worked lately. And then with Austin, in the running game outside of the screen game and getting him the ball as a passer, I mean, could you split him out a little bit more, try to get him on some angle routes and some choice routes on linebackers? Like, yeah, you could. But that stuff can be complicated and hard based off coverages that you're facing. And then the running game is a lot of stuff is like what we call game plan runs, where it's more specialty, and you might be able to hit that once, but trying to hit it time and time again is just not going to work, because defenses are going to latch onto it because there's some kind of tell early in the play. And then it's like, oh, well, I've seen this before. Let's go blow it up. And so I think it's just harder to get their run game going without B-Rob. So I think obviously they released Chris Rodriguez for roster spot reasons over the weekend. I assume they will sign him back today. With B-Rob, potentially, missing the next game. Austin obviously suffering that terrible concussion late in the game and presumably out for a while. So I would assume that Chris Rodriguez comes back and maybe he can be a guy that can get it going a little bit if B-Rob is limited and some of those more first and second down traditional, call them base runs. And if that's the case, then great. Now your offense is back on track. If not, then it's tough sledding, because the Titans aren't good, but they've got some players on defense that can make things difficult.
Craig, let's go to the other side of the ball. Cooper Rush a few weeks ago played the Eagles and had 45 yards passing. He's Cooper Rush. They sacked him one time. He had a quarterback rating of 117. What are you seeing on the defensive side of the ball that's been an issue?
I mean, overall, I feel like the defense played pretty well yesterday. I mean, the 34 is misleading because there's 2 special teams touchdowns in the final 5 minutes, or the final whatever minutes that was.
Right.
And so ultimately, they gave up 20 points, and that is not a bad day at the office. But at the same time, like, the lack of pass rush is clearly an issue, and especially yesterday, because the Cowboys were without their 2 starting guards. Like, where's Daron Payne? What are we doing there? Where's Johnny Newton? Like, you're a rookie, but you're taking on backups and you're a second rounder. And then the other one that's kind of surprising is Dan Quinn has traditionally done such a great job with Micah Parsons, and this year he and Joe have done a great job with Frankie Louvu of getting good matchups. Well, you got 2 backup guards, and where's Louvu? The 2 sack kind of day. And you say that out loud, and it sounds very like hot take sports talk radio type of thing. Like, expect a guy to get 2 sacks, but it's really like, can you get consistent pressure? And they just didn't.
They had 2 quarterback hits, Craig. That's it.
It's not good enough. And that, by the way, I don't know if you guys caught the very, very end of Dan's presser, but there's kind of a, hey, any more questions? Dan's ready to get, or actually they were like, any more questions? At first, no. He stays sitting down for a second, and then Stanley goes, the pass rush didn't seem to be getting home. And before he can finish the question, Dan goes, I agree. He slaps the table and gets up and is like, all right, we're good here. So, like, clearly that was something that was very much on his mind and very, very frustrating to him as to why they could not take advantage of a very, very banged up Cowboys offensive line. It's just not good enough. And then in the secondary, like, they need Marshawn Lattimore. And
Definitely.
That was obvious yesterday. I mean, the touchdown that they give up to Schoonmaker late in the game is a blown coverage by, I think, Chin, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But it happens because, think back to the Pittsburgh game. They don't give help to Benjamin St. Juste late, and he gets beat on the touchdown, right? So Quan Martin's playing the middle of the field as a safety, and he is right before the snap, sprints over to basically say, Cooper Rush, don't you dare throw a fade ball over to CeeDee Lamb, who's matched up on Benjamin St. Juste, because I am here and I will pick that thing off and or smash through CeeDee Lamb. And then the middle of the field's wide open and nobody carries the tight end up the seam, and that's the easiest touchdown Cooper Rush will throw in his entire career. So that is like the need to do that kind of stuff versus just, hey, Marshawn Lattimore's got CeeDee Lamb. Where else can we allocate resources? Like, they definitely need him right now. And so I think the pass rush and the back end stuff is really rough. And then, frankly, Rico Dowdle had a better game. I haven't looked at the actual average.
4.5 yards a carry.
Yeah, but like during it felt terrible. And it's just like I'm writing down Dowdle for 7, Dowdle for 6. Oh, there's the 2. Oh, there's for 7. And so for a team that really struggled to run the football all year too, the fact that they gave up a ton of rushing yards in this game, not ideal. Even if they bent but didn't really break. That's the thing, is they did enough. The defense did enough to win in this game. The offense just absolutely did not, especially in the second half. Well, and then obviously special teams is a whole other nightmare.
Yeah, but remember, they were fortunate in that Dallas had a field goal that was blocked. They missed a field goal. They fumbled. They had a punt that was blocked. I mean, Dallas was doing everything to give Washington chances. Sure. Great field position. So, yeah, largely.
But that's who Dallas is, right? Yes. Like, I think that's the frustrating thing about this game. I was talking about this with some folks in the press box yesterday, and it's like, it's not like Dallas came out and, division rival. They got up for the game. They played a great game. The Cowboys played terribly yesterday. That's a bad football team that played bad football, and you lost to them if you're Washington. Like, that's what's hard to swallow about that game, is this isn't a Dallas team that came out and just played their best game of the year. They stunk yesterday, and they still won.
That is true. That's Craig Hoffman, the host of the Craig Hoffman Show. You can listen to him later today on the Team 980. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Happy holiday.
Thanks, man.
You too, buddy.